Recording as soon as we I think we're going to go ahead and get this started. Looks like a couple more people have just joined. So thank you for joining. The title for this is Amazing Project Management for Tribal Nations with Innovative E, Microsoft PPM, and PS Plus. Looking through the attendee list, it looks like there are some folks that do work with tribal nations, but there's also folks from varied backgrounds. So we're going to kind of keep this a little bit more high level, and we're also going to try to keep it interactive. It's not a huge audience today, but nevertheless, it looks like it's going to be a good presentation. So we're looking forward to it. A little housekeeping to get started. So we are recording this, and it will be available afterwards. We're using GoToMeeting, so for those who are on, notice you've got your little GoToMeeting box there. We're going to try to make this interactive, so we're going to use the question box. So you see it highlighted there on the screen. That's the question box, and we're actually going to ask you guys to submit a question right after this. So hopefully pay attention and stay engaged. That will make it more engaging for everyone. So you see that there's where the question actually goes, and you'll see that the response comes in with that highlighted area. Again, this presentation is being recorded, and we will be providing a digital copy of this afterwards and to make it available for everyone. So I told you I was going to ask you guys a question. So what I'd like you to do is, if you can hear me okay, and if you can find that question box, if you can go ahead and just type a yes or a Y in the question box. And that way we're sure everybody's able to see the questions and interact. So let's give folks a second to go ahead and give us a question. Just say yes or Y.
We got a couple people here. We got Joel and Richard.
All right, awesome. Yeah, hopefully you guys can find that. Anybody else who wants to go ahead? Ronald. Okay, good. Appreciate it. Awesome, guys. Appreciate it. So that way we'll stay a little bit more engaging. There's going to be several times we'll ask you questions and try to make it more useful for you, because this webinar is for you. There's our copyright obligatory slide. The legal folks make us do. Moving on from there, we're going to start by talking a little bit about what is the business case or the problem space. What some people you hear them saying, the why of the why. Why do you need to go build a project management information system? So some of the common challenges that you find in agencies and government entities is a lack of a unified project management hub or project management center. So there's really no transparency and standardization for the stakeholders, starting with the executives and really throughout the process of all other stakeholders who need to have access to a common repository of project and portfolio information. Another common problem is financial management. Oftentimes when people are using disparate project management tools, which oftentimes they're not even really project management tools, they can be email and Excel and Word and PowerPoint and all kinds of other tools, you really don't have an easy way to map up or marry up the financial information with your schedule information, for instance. So you may know that you're 50% done with a task or a project, but how is your burn rate as far as your financial component of that? How much money have you actually spent? And how does that, are you 50% through your budget? Are you 70% through your budget? How does that work? So schedule management's another common theme with almost all areas of project management. And then another area is kind of your intake, your different project type process standardization. So if you've got a project that does, maintenance versus construction versus an IT project, how does that behave and how do those act differently? And can you have a more standardized way from the executive, from the ideation to the intake phase, where people are kind of balancing those out to judge which projects are more important to do than others, because resources of different types, money, time, people, they're always constrained, so you have to make those decisions up front. So what ends up happening is you have minimal executive visibility, like we talked about, and at the end of the day you end up with a lot of inconsistency of results from your project delivery. Whether you have a PMO or formal PMO in place or not, you still have a lot of inconsistency. So those are the key kind of challenges that we see that this type of solution might go after, solving those pain points. And that's what we're here to do today, is just give you some ideas of how you can build a solution like this that will help alleviate some of these pain points. So what we'd like to do now again, in the question box, if you could type in what some of your top PM challenges are. We gave you a couple starters there. Is it lack of transparency, the ability to get reporting and consistent business intelligence across your portfolio? Is it stakeholder engagement or adoption to get people engaged in the process and use the tools that you do have? Or are there other things? So if you guys could just type in the question box there, what does it look like? We'll tackle some of those and maybe even change our presentation here a little bit in some of the demos towards that angle. So
we got stakeholder adoption is definitely one of them.
Stakeholder adoption. All right, awesome. So we have a vote for stakeholder adoption here. Anything else? Lack of transparency, other challenges?
I got just stakeholder adoption at the moment.
Okay. All right. So we will we'll talk a little bit about that then during our presentation as well. Moving on to our next slide. Just a little bit about us. Some people may know us, some may not. I'm Mike Taylor. I'm the one that's been doing all the talking so far. President of Innovative E, been doing project management solutions for more than a couple decades now. And we have Matt Freilich as well. If Matt, you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, my name's Matt Freilich. I've been doing project management solutions for about 7 or 8 years now. Working with Innovative E for about 6 of those 7 or 8, so for quite some time. My focus is actually on PPM and business intelligence.
Right, and so what Matt also does for us is he's our primary architect for PPM, like you said, in business intelligence. So helps us determine which solutions are best for like the project and portfolio management tools that Microsoft has, plus what tools can help us really add to those tools to build better solutions where there may be some gaps in the base platform. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. We're going to kind of talk about how that platform lays out and what these additional tools are, and you'll see some demos on that as well. So a little bit about who Innovative E is for those who don't know us. Really our mission's very broad. We just try to, we strive to make project management amazing and improve the lives of everyone in every industry at any time and anywhere. So it's kind of a broad and all-inclusive mission statement. We really do believe that nowadays, humans really are engaged in a lot of project work. By some estimates, 60 or 70% of all human endeavors are project related because we've managed to automate a lot of things that aren't project related, right? We're good at building, machines and programs that automate a lot of repetitive tasks, but those non-repetitive tasks are those that are left to the humans. So an awful lot of our time in the professional world, and even not in the professional world, you could be doing a home improvement project, right? It's still a lot of project-related stuff that's out there. So we're trying to improve that for everyone. To do that, we really are looking at delivering continuously amazing project management experiences for enterprise organizations, agencies, different types of organizations and companies out there. Really, the idea of project management is it's a continuous process. It's not something that you just do one time. You don't just develop a tool or a process or some training or different things that handle the people, process, technology. It's really about the whole solution, and it's a continuous piece that evolves with your organizational needs and the changing needs of the people that are involved with doing that to make them more successful. So to that end, we hold multiple certifications with Microsoft, obviously, in their project portfolio management, which is the PPM tools space, with the SharePoint space, which is collaboration and content, and of course application development that supports it in things that we need to develop that are outside the, what the product tools can do out of the box. We're also partnered with PS Plus. They were the last year's winner of the best add-on product for Microsoft Project and the Project Suite, and we'll talk a little bit more. And some of the demos you'll see today are really using their tools. And they also have an upcoming set of software releases in the fall that are really exciting. And unfortunately, we can't show you those today, but in the not too distant future, we may be able to preview some of that for those who are interested. It's a great platform. It's a great tool, but they're making some really good improvements as well. And the good thing about it is when you talk about the continuous piece of it is all the cloud solutions that Microsoft builds and the partners like PS Plus and us build on top of those is their continuous solution. So if you already have PS Plus now, you're going to be able to get some of the these upgrades that they're doing in the future.
Yeah.
It's a continuous improvement process.
All the updates will be made available. So as we roll them out, we'll work with you, get them in place for your development and your staging environment, so that way you have a place to play with them, see how you're going to interact with them, and then we can roll them to production with you.
Yep, exactly. We've also been a longstanding member of the Project Management Institute. We're a global registered education provider and have been, I think, for 8 years or 9 years, 8 years. I can't remember what it is now. So we can, for those who are PMPs out there, we can award PDUs. And I think Pamela's the moderator here. I'll ask her after. I think we can actually award a PDU for this presentation for those who attend. So we'll double check on that as well.
You're right, Mike.
That's correct?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome.
Awesome. All right. So just for a review, for those who don't know how the Microsoft Project Portfolio Management Toolset works, I'm going to do a real quick review of how it's evolved over the last, really about the last 3 years. It used to be all client-server based, where you would have, there's multiple roles you can have for stakeholders. But you have 3 fundamental roles. You have your executives who are your consumers of information. You have your project managers who are responsible for the schedules and the project information, aggregating it, getting it managed on a regular basis. Then you have your team members who report that information. Depending on how you want your project management system configured, they may or may not be actually entering their information, their updates, their time, etc. There's different ways you can do that. Of course, there's a wide variety of devices that you can use, from your traditional PC, your desktop PC, to laptops. Now these tools are all being used on just about any type of device, any kind of glass or surface. These tools will be supported on. There are a few exceptions, but it's getting much better. Now the traditional way of doing this was you would have a server farm, and you would deploy SharePoint and Project Server as a service of SharePoint on top of a server farm in your company's data center. What's happened though is that's now been replaced with Microsoft Project in the cloud. So the real advantage of that is all of that work that you would have had to have done in the data center and have your folks working on is now replaced, and it's literally lights on. It's as fast as your acquisition process can go, and your IT security folks will approve and get things set up just from the cloud infrastructure. If you're a government organization, you might want to go to the Government Community Cloud. They call it the GCC. There are a few more restrictions around that, and it adds a little bit of complexity, but at the end of the day, setting up a Microsoft Project PPM solution now versus what it took when you had to install on-prem is significantly easier. It takes a fraction of the time. We've literally had people set up in, a matter of a few business days.
For a vanilla installation.
For a vanilla installation, right? Not a highly customized implementation.
Or a migration. That tends to take a little longer.
Yeah, exactly. But if you didn't have anything and you just needed to get something going, you can actually get, if you want to get in and do a proof of concept or pilot or even a small solution, you could literally have it up and running in a matter of days. So the real benefit of that is you save a lot of time and money for actually focusing on the business solution itself, configuring this project management system to how you need it to work for your business. And that, with what we talked about before, now gives you a project management solution that's accessible by anyone, anywhere, with secure role-based access that the product gives you just out of the box.
I mean, really, the other benefits to it, it really enables bring your own device if that's something that's interesting to you or not.
Right.
Because you can access it from anywhere versus just, hey, I got my computer and that's all I can do, and I have to have my VPN, I have to log in.
Yep, absolutely. We've had solutions that we deployed, and we really thought that they would be using, their PCs and their, and within this organization or another organization. And in one particular case, we went to a meeting. There were a bunch of stakeholders there. On the first day, they launched the application that we had helped them build, on top of the Microsoft stack. And we saw several people bringing it up on their iPads, and we didn't even know that those folks had iPads, but they brought them to the meeting, brought it up, and they were able to look at their dashboards and get their information directly from there. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So just to give a quick introduction for those who aren't, I mentioned a few minutes ago that Microsoft has a lot of partners in the ecosystem that build different types of solutions to augment the feature functionality of the platform. It's important to remember what Microsoft provides is a series of software from the server side to the client side that's hosted in the cloud, but it really is a platform. It's meant to provide the foundation, and certain things that that people need done, you can really accelerate the solution using application suites like PS Plus, which we mentioned a minute ago, to make it much faster. We've had folks who, once you deploy the platform, they say, well, we've got X, Y, and Z things that we want to do, and we'll tell them, well, you can do 2 of those 3 things with PS Plus out of the box rather than have to go configure or build something custom on top of Microsoft Project. PS Plus will handle it out of the box. Plus, it provides some functionality you just can't get without building something or buying a third-party product. So again, it's a ready-to-use, user-friendly, end-to-end application that can have you up and running fast to solve particular business problems. And with that, we're going to actually jump right into a couple of the quick demos here to show you a little bit more about what you can do with the Microsoft PPM platform. This is Project Online with PS Plus loaded into the environment, and Matt's going to take over and do a little bit of demo here for some reporting, and this first demo will be about reporting, enhanced user experience, and whatever else Matt feels like he needs or wants to do. And if anybody has any questions, you go ahead and post them in the box, and if there's something we can cover, we'll do that real quick too.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks, Mike. That's great. So we're going to bring up a PWA here with our PS Plus installed. You see a whole bunch of things that if you've ever used Project 13 or above, you'll see some stuff that looks fairly familiar as how it looks and feels. So we got that going on. So what we're going to hit is some of the improvements that PS Plus brings to the table, specifically around the PS Plus Navigator. So what we have here, as I scroll just a little bit too much, is a whole suite of apps. These are all included with the PS Plus product. They add on to Project. They work well within it. They integrate with it. They get you what you need. They fill some of the gaps within Project Online as a whole. And that's not to say that these gaps are insurmountable or can't be filled by process or anything else. It's just these are what several people in the industry have seen over time, over many years, to see what makes sense and what can be filled and what gets you going faster without having to sit there and look at a blank piece of paper and go, what next? So what I'm looking at here is my Navigator. One of the challenges that we hear all the time with Project and Project Online is, how do I get to what I need? Where do I want to go? What's relevant to me? So that's what the PS Plus Navigator brings to the table. You can see here I have my couple of favorited projects. I have a whole bunch of all the other projects in my system that I can look at. I can easily just click on icons and go, okay, hey, these are my projects. I have various tiles I can go to that have a little visual flair to it. I can get to where I want to go. I can look at my risks and issues of the system. I can quickly press new risk. It'll pop open a new tab up here at the top, as you see, and I can type a new risk in immediately. I can get to my project site. I can get to my data. I can get to the information I need in a quick, concise manner.
And it was literally 2 clicks, right?
Right.
Right.
I don't click through. I don't have to click through several different steps to get to where I need to go just to show what I need to show.
And this is configurable as well by the user, right? And it's your interface. You can say which projects you're interested in.
Right. So, and it's security trim too, right? So what we're looking at here is all the other projects. This is what we have access to in the system as my role or your role in the organization. So if we limit those things down through security, that's what shows up here. But that's still a lot of noise. I want to just add the projects I care about to my favorites. So I added catalog publishing, popped up right there at the top. Wonderful. Now I don't need to see this anymore. This is what I can have my dashboard, my front page here just be this. I can see just the information I care about on a regular basis.
So the project manager, you start up your device and bam, there it is.
Yeah. Does that mean, I don't know, I mean, I know since we only have a few people on the webinar today, does that kind of resonate with folks? I mean, does that make sense? If you think so, please post a response in the question there saying yes, no, or if you want more information about this, happy to go into it. But and we'll bounce back and forth here in a minute. But we're going to jump into some of the little bit more flair that PS Plus and Project Online bring out of the box to you, and that's dealing with some of the reporting. So you already saw a screenshot about it, right? Just a moment ago in there. So we're looking at the portfolio roll-up status report here. So this is something to be able to give to your executives, to give to folks to just have an insight. Your stakeholders should know, what am I looking at? How's the project going? We talked about stakeholder adoption being a challenge. It is. Even with the best tools in the world, it's still going to be a challenge. But part of that challenge of the adoption is because they don't have an idea, and generally speaking, your stakeholders are not project managers. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't know why they're looking at what they're looking at. So trying to get that information, just one line, what's going on, without having them to go anywhere special. They just can run this. You can create a PDF at the top here. You see all this stuff. I can print the report. I can PDF it. I can export it to Excel. Create a PDF, looks exactly like this, and I can send it to you.
That's really cool. And we find a lot of times in government entities that, creating PDFs and being able to do look-aheads for meetings and read-aheads, those kinds of things are key. So it's really interesting to be able to just have a one-click to do that.
Absolutely. PDF is really the most simple-sounding thing in the world and the most complex thing to actually produce and make it look good.
Yep.
This does it. It's out of the box. It's wonderful. It just works. So I think we'll go back to the presentation for a moment, and we'll come back and do a little bit more demo in just a second here.
All right. Very good. Oops. Get back to there. That's not where I was. Oh, here I go. There we go. All right. All I had to do was hit the next button. So really getting back to what are the business benefits of doing this. So, put it as a question. Now, what if executive stakeholders had unified access and one-click self-service access to unified project management and portfolio management information? What kind of value does that bring to the organization? What if the team members can utilize consistent processes so that there's not a different way to do all these different things, and even different types of processes can be, and different types of projects can be brought into a central system. You may have different ways to manage them, and that's fine. You can have different templates for the different project types. A small maintenance task will be a whole lot different than a large IT, development type project or a construction project. All those templates can be different, but you can utilize consistent processes for your intake and your resource management and ways to then do the reporting so that it pulls all that information together. Then if you have the ability to proactively manage the schedules and be able to really get in and find issues ahead of time so that you can, rather than you find out that you're behind with, especially when you get into things like portfolios where you have multiple projects that are, they have interdependencies or working together in some manner, if you can see what's going to happen and how they're going to affect each other. And then there's a lot of additional things, but these are the four we were just kind of focusing on, the project financial data. If you can get that surfaced at any time, anywhere, if that's available, and it actually ties to your project itself. So you're really looking at, again, if you're 50% of the way through, if your folks are telling you you're doing a large development project and you're 50% of the way through that project from a schedule perspective, where are you on your budget burn? If you're not 50% through on the budget burn, then you're probably in pretty good shape. If you're 80%, then you may have some problems, and you want to be the ability to address those now rather than at the end of the project.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah, so from there, we're actually going to move into the next demo, talking about the financial manager, and go into a little more of how, again, this is a PS Plus add-in that helps you tie information that's from within the actual projects themselves and pull that out into a much more robust reporting mechanism, right, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna hit a few things. Financial manager being one of them. Sometimes I get my words just jumbled up my mouth, and then they come out as one word and it doesn't make any sense. But that's okay. So yeah, we're gonna hit a couple of things here all at the same time and see what really can look at. How do you surface some of those topics that you just covered, Mike, like the risks and issues? How do we surface that information from a portfolio standpoint, from a multiple project, from a program standpoint? What does that make sense to look at? How do we really understand what's going on with the project? And maybe even talk about some of the governance of project management and a PMO, because that's not trivial either. Making sure everyone's checking the boxes and playing the same game, standardization, right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to hit over here. We're going to hit the financial manager. There's two places we're actually going to look at this. So we're going to go over and actually look at what we saw in the image just a few minutes ago. If you can see me, I'm pointing at the screen, but clearly that's not something you can see.
I'm here in the room with him. I can verify he's pointing at the screen.
So what we're going to do is we're going to come over my table view here. So we're going to take a look at all my financials that go into the system. Now, project, as you may know, managing in Project Standard on your desktop, you can track financials. It can be done. You can get them out in a sort of time-phase fashion. It can be done. It is not easy, especially when you're talking about resources. What does that look like? Nobody really wants to put this person is X dollars an hour or X dollars per use or something like that. That is, even with blended rates, that's a confidential thing that no one wants to put in a PMO system like this. So how do you get around some stuff like that? Well, that information is being tracked somewhere. You have actuals, you have budget, you know what's going on, so you can track it here. And this feels, looks, and acts kind of like a spreadsheet. So you got that familiarness to it, right? Mm-hmm. And what we have here is I have a couple of cost types across the top that I'm looking at. I have my budget, real simple, real easy for me to just type in how much I want to spend on a monthly basis for this project. So I mean, you can tell I'm also over here. I'm in year 2017, so you can see this. I can actually go in here and say, oh, I want to put $1,500 against hosting for Dynamics. So I'm going to put that there. It sums it up, and if I scroll over, it rolls it up for 2017, and it also rolls up for the grand total. So you see everything going across the year. And I mean, with any tribal nation or government entity, these projects are not like 3 months and they're done. They're not 2 weeks and they're done. These are big lifts, moving stuff from upgrading a whole casino, upgrading a platform of any kind. These are not trivial tasks, and they take months of organization and everything else, and they can take over years. So, I mean, construction projects, that's not a 2-day project, right? Right. So you really got to be able to plan out where are we burning our rate. So I can plan my budget burn right here. If we want to manage stuff out of the schedule a little bit, well, now we have our budget burn, which is typed into an Excel spreadsheet. That's cool. This allows me to pull some of this stuff out in from the schedule, literally from the schedule. So if you have resources or pay per use or machines or whatever, right, that can come out and it can be organized and laid on top of here, and it will be summarized by month, so it'll fit the same rule. Same with your actuals, right? So I can click on my actuals, and I don't have any actuals in this project, unfortunately, but it's the same concept. They pull them in, and there they are. I can also look at my project expenses. So this is another good one, right? How do you track expenses in project? There's workarounds, right? You can go in there and put a line item saying this is a project expense and it costs a fixed price. Absolutely, right. Can do that. Now you have a bunch of random tasks in your schedule that make no sense to the schedule. They're just line items for you to track your project. So I can come down here, click on like $12,000 for April. If I scroll down here, well, there you go. I have my purchase order. I have a cross-reference text if I want to. I have invoice amounts. I have invoice dates. And I know who the supplier was. And it rolls up into my list there. So it kind of gives me everything I want to know in a quick, easy way to do this. And you can have calculated cost types that do this information. In addition to this, we can actually go and you can chart this information. So you can kind of see my suite chart here. I don't want to look at project expenses, look at the budget. So you kind of see the different organizations. So I have my total budget, OPEX, CAPEX, and they should all add up to be the same. But I also have a little button down here. If I have year over year, I can hit play, and you'll see a little animation here in just a second. Well, not a lot going on there, but boom, there it is. It kind of plays through, and you kind of see year over year and see this information. This just works. It's out of the box. And I can turn off cumulative values, so I can see it looking a little bit more like hills, peaks and valleys as to when the budget's being spent, where it's supposed to be spent, and everything else.
Very nice.
So that's at a project level. That's great. Project level. There it is. What do we do at a portfolio level or multiple project level? Well, I'm going to come up here and select my 4 projects, one of them being that catalog publishing that we were just at. And I want to look at budget to actuals. Well, let's not do that. Let's do budget to forecast. I actually want to look at all my projects, how that looks. So I'm going to do that here. Real time, hopefully nothing breaks on me, but I don't anticipate it. So I'm pulling in everything, month over, budget to forecast. I can see where everything's at, so you can see all that information I had in my catalog publishing. And if we notice that little $1,500 that I put in there for July, that's right there too. It summarizes on the fly for you to see all this information. I can change the year, so I can look at years ahead. And you can also see all the grand totals and everything else. So this is where it's showing you from a collection level. So this is, I can see a lot of projects at once and how it works. Or I can go to chart view. Now I can see where my cost is actually being spent and how it's being spent. As you can see here, all of it's being spent to catalog publishing. Most important project in our system. We got to spend as much money as possible on this thing. So you can kind of see what we're looking at. You can have a chart down here that shows you what's going on, and it's all interactive. As you see, I have like my mouse cursor that goes up, and this is the total sum. If I were to come up to this pie chart, if I actually click into it, it will now show an annual cost for catalog publishing. So you get that detail, that drive, that delivery into everything. A few other things you hit on, Mike, were great topics, and again, these are things that PS Plus brings to the table that can be beneficial and really easy to use.
Right.
My risk matrix. How do you track your risks? How do you know where things are at, what's in trouble, what's going on? I have all my projects in my system, all my risks. It just pulled them all up here, said, great, look at this fantastic thing. I have a whole bunch of colors to tell me what's going on. I know everyone just looked at the red.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me, but I know it.
Yeah.
I know what happened.
If you're a project manager, your eye went right to the upper right corner.
So these are, and red is not bad. Red is just the high risk. High risk, high impact. What do we need to do? We need to have a mitigation plan for all these as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the ones in the lower left, you may or may not have a mitigation plan depending on what you got to do, but I bet you're going to have a mitigation plan for all those in the upper right.
Absolutely. So we can come up here, we can click on any of these numbers, click on it, it's going to show me here are the risks and what projects they're associated to. And if there's an owner associated with it, you see I have Owen Callan here. He's assigned to this. If I want to hit him up on Skype, I can click on this and Skype for Business will start. And I can have a chat going, Owen, where are we at with this risk? Do we have a mitigation strategy? What are we doing? How do we make sure that this is not a problem?
Absolutely. And this grid is you can format the dimensions of the grid. You can 3x3, 4x4, right?
Yeah, we can go down to 3x3. We can go up to 10x10, which we have here. You have the side here. You can change these labels. I mean, catastrophic and almost catastrophic. I mean, it's a little shades of gray as to what it is, but you can have your different labels and how these all roll up. In addition to, you change the colors. Maybe you don't like red. Maybe you want blue.
Yeah,
that's cool. We can do that too.
Right. Absolutely.
So from there, I think that kind of covers a lot of things. I mentioned one other thing. Maybe we'll talk about governance on the front page here. I'm going to hit PS Plus Assurance. This is going to run up another little thing that's really interesting.
Yeah, for project managers who need to understand kind of what's going on within their project manager schedules and how well they're doing on keeping everything up to date, etc.
Are they checking the boxes to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do? This is not something you beat your project managers up over. This is just to see, are we getting at least the minimalistic checkboxes in place? Then you can go on and worry about, are we doing well at those?
Right.
So as this runs up here, and as I said, we're talking about PS Plus a lot here, and then the reason is it's all beneficial things on top of what's already built into Project Online. You can already do you can connect your project professional client right to Project Online, start managing projects. You have a unified resource pool that if anybody out there has done, I made this whole thing up and I have a shared resource pool and a shared drive and I corrected it every time. That's exactly what this avoids.
Yep.
So it's all built in together. So what we're looking at here is this is grouped up by department or by customer projects really. So I have my controls and my plan status. A lot of red here means I have some stuff that's not in great state. If I look at my Agile software development project, well, I have a plan status, it's red. That's because it's not baseline, so I don't know if it's overdue. Has it been updated in a week? Nope. Need to make sure that's updated. If all these things are green, that's green. Done. My controls here, this is where it gets this is not as perfect as you might want it to mean. How good are the risks? You don't know because good is subjective. Well, we can
but you know whether or not they're doing good.
Well, I can tell if they have risks and issues logged for the project, which is an important statistic because if you have a project that has no risks and no issues,
it's either perfect, which almost never happens, or they're not.
We want to hire you.
Right.
If you never have a risk, never have an issue, send me your resume.
That's right.
And then if they're overdue or not. So it checks that stuff. And if everything's green, you have a check mark. And this is to help people out, making sure that your system your people in your system, your PMs are actually getting the stuff done appropriately and standardized and following process.
Yes, absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah. So we're coming up here towards the end of the session. I'm going to pass it back over to Mike here for just a moment.
Before you go away, everybody start thinking. We're going to get to some Q&A now, so in just a minute. But so start thinking. If you have any questions, go ahead and start typing them into the box. I'm going to ask Matt to do something else because we're actually about 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So there's actually two other things that I find really cool with PS Plus and what it brings to the table. The first is he has no idea I'm about to ask him to do this. The project highlight report. This is really a really nice report that allows you literally in one click to produce a report. And as a project manager, I know everyone, we've all been in that position where you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 projects, who knows how many to run, and you spend a lot of time pulling information together and publishing those reports and maybe PDFing them or at least saving them out to a share or a SharePoint site or someplace where people can have access to them. What this site does is once you get this is a configurable report, and it gives you so you can change some of the dynamics, right, dynamically change some of the things that it's showing. But this gives you the ability to, in one click, produce a project status report with all the salient information that you might need to present to your stakeholders.
And PS Plus we recognize that this may not be the one report that you want, and it can be configured. And there are limitations like anything else. This doesn't stop us from actually configuring a more tailored report, more specific report to the information, because we can actually get the data out using PS Plus. We can use all the other tools you want to use. You can use some Power BI. We can use SQL Server reporting service. You can use Tableau. You can use all the tools you're familiar with to attack the data if necessary. It's all there. It's unified. It's not just stuffed up in the cloud and you can't do anything with it.
Right, exactly.
So to your point, yeah, we have we have this wonderful status report. New feature that they just CPS recently just put in the system here. As you see the Gantt chart, I put up a couple of tasks, the same tasks I have right here. It shows me visually in a Gantt chart where they're at. Mm-hmm. And all this stuff, colors, tasks, comments, fields, all that stuff's configurable. You can put up stuff that maybe have more relevant. We have a couple of risks, a couple of issues. I like it. I'm good. I could publish this. It'll publish to my project site, and I can see the trend of all the projects. Or from here, I can run all the project reports, and on Friday and go, here's the day. I'm a PMO manager. I can go through everything, boom, 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 boom. Publish. All the reports are published.
And when you publish it, it actually saves it when you to a SharePoint site in chronological order. So you can go back to the one from the week before and do, or all of them. You can go back as far as you've been publishing them for that project.
Timestamps them, bring it up, PDF it later.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. The other really quick thing you might show is if you would go back to issues and risk, if you do the risk to issue escalator.
Absolutely.
That's one that, anyone who's done that kind of thing where you actually are really truly managing risk. And one of the issues why people don't is because it's hard to manage that piece of data. This allows you to really be able to enter the risk very simply, like Matt was talking about a little while ago.
And this is a project management tool. This is not a PMO tool. This is not this is a PM tool.
Right.
Because if you're managing it properly, as you're saying, you need to make it when risk becomes an issue, you need to make it a risk. You need to make it an issue. You need to log it in the right spot. Otherwise, it just falls off into the ether, into the black hole somewhere.
Right. So traditionally, the way to do that would be if you're using if you're using a SharePoint team site or even a project team site, you would have your issue out there, and if it became a reality, the event actually happened, the risk actually happened, then it becomes an issue, right? And you need to track it that way. So there's an app that's built into PS Plus called a risk to issue escalator. So it's literally a one-click process to allow you to do that, so you don't have to copy and paste information and then lose traceability of where that risk was. It maintains all of that in one thing. So maybe you can show that real quick.
Absolutely. And then as you can see up here, I can filter stuff out, so I can say, well, this is a custom filter. I can do what I want. I can do category or status. Actually, let me just do that so you can see what I'm doing here. Well, if I type it in there, it'll actually filter everything out. But I can filter out, just show the active ones, just so we're on the same page. You can see some of these already been escalated. I can go over here. I can highlight over this little PS Plus button that says, this was escalated on May 22nd.
So you don't lose the traceability.
Right. I know exactly when this was done. We know that when this became an issue. So, well, you know, I can easily come up here and hit travel plans are constraining my resourceability, slow progress. All right, cool. I can escalate that up. I can fill in this information. I can say, all right, here's the discussion. Clearly won't have a resolution to it yet because it's a brand new issue. And I can, you know, if there are related items, I can go and attach those. Owner, who it is, who's going to own this project, who's going to own this issue. Who's going to
Owen's got this one.
Well, it's assigned to him.
That's right.
But who owns it? Who's the one who's going to get beat up because it's not done?
There's the chokeable neck.
Yeah, exactly. When's the due date? When do we need to have it done by?
Right.
And if I escalate it, what's going to do here? It's going to pop up, and we're going to it's going to close out the risk because it's closed. That's what it's supposed to do.
And it popped up that little icon until you've been.
It was escalated today. Bam, so there it is.
Now it'll show up over in the risk list, right?
Yeah. So now we have an issue for this project just created. Good to go.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Good stuff. So thank you, Matt. And so now we're going to get to the last slide we've got here. So do we have any questions in the question page?
We do not at the moment.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask before we start to close this out? I'll go ahead while you're thinking about it and just let you know you can contact us and you might qualify for a Microsoft sponsored half a one-day session for your organization. And it just depends on, you know, being a partner, they provide that through us. It does have a little bit of qualification, but you know, most organizations can qualify for that. And we can do, you know, most of the time we do those remote, but sometimes if it's a large opportunity to get with a lot of folks, we can come on site and do this. So, and always feel free to reach out if you just want to chat about your project management situation, your vision, where you'd like to go with it to make project management amazing for your organization. Feel free to reach out. So
we aim to make it amazing.
That's right, absolutely, and it can be amazing, and it really is when you see the results, when you see people that have that actionable information and they're able to do things with it. It really does make their lives better and make their organizations more successful. So, all right, any questions in the pane?
No, we have Richard telling us we were good from earlier on, so that's good.
Thanks, Richard.
Is there anything else anybody if you want to know about or follow up on? Happy to answer questions.
Again, they have all the contact information there. Pamela's going to be distributing this deck as well as any information for anyone who is PMP who might want a PDU. And as always, feel free to reach out. Our information, our personal contact information is in there, but of course you can contact us through any of the channels you see there as well.
Yep. I don't know if we have any questions, but I think we had some people that hopefully everyone got some value out of this because it's, you know, it's some really good things here that can really accelerate and help out with the implementation of a PMIS system like this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks everybody for attending. Hope you guys have a great afternoon and keep in touch.